One. Today we'll discuss some more Linux commands and we'll look into shell scripts more. So before we move on, let's learn how to use the wget command line application. So wget is a method for you to connect your GitHub repositories via your terminal, right? Not every time you want to create files, you want to go into the GitHub page to create a file, and it will be quite slow and not very efficient for a programmer. So you need to learn how to use the wget. So now the wget command is the git. If you don't have this in your device before, you run the sudo apt get install wget. But if you have it before, you can just skip this. Since I have it now, you will see it's already installed. Now let's move on to running this command. So now when I go to my GitHub repository, I have a repository on to clone, the ALX learning repository. Now there are two ways to verify your profile so that you can push your code from your terminal to GitHub. You could use the SSH or you could use the personal SS token. Now the personal SS token I find is the easiest way to do this, so would learn how to do that right now. Now to create a new personal SS token, you go to your GitHub profile, go to your settings, you go all the way to your developer settings, personal access tokens, select tokens classic. Now you would create a new token by clicking generate token. Again, select the classic because it's more reliable, I guess. Now you would have to provide your password or your verification via your phone. I'll be using my phone for verification, so you could use your password instead. So I have verified using my phone now, and the page should reload. Yes, so now you can provide details about your personal address token. Now I'll be using my personal address token for this YouTube session, so I'll say ALX learn token. Yeah. Now you could select how long you want this token to work before it will be expired. I'll select 7 days, even though I'll delete this immediately after this video for security reasons. That is. So you have to select the repo so you can edit repositories using this personal address token. So that's all. You can just click the generate token right now. So now you have to copy this token, right? Click the copy and now it's pasted to my clipboard. So now let's go back to our terminal. Now to clone a repository, you use the git clone command. And now because we are using our personal access token to enable us to push back to this repository from the terminal, you will have to use the personal access token inside of the URL, right? Now if you check back to this page, you find out we have the HTTPS. Let me go back to the repository so you can see. Let me just finish the new page. This is the repository that I want to clone. Now if you check the URL, you find out you have https github.com, my username, and then the repository name right now. So you have to provide this in your terminal, but now we also have to use our personal address token inside of this same URL. So now let me go back to my terminal. I'll provide the http Now, before you move on to the github.com / your username and then your repository name, you want to provide your own username first. So let's say you are trying to clone someone else's repository and then you want to contribute to the project. So you have your own username, ; your personal access token. Then you put the @github.com / the username for the repository, which is HARDOPE, then the name of the repository I think you're trying to clone, so ALX _ learning. So now you can see cloning. So now we have the repository now because when I list my files now, you find ALX learning right here. Now CD ALX. Now you can see I have the readme.md that matches the same thing that is in the repository, because we cloned, like copied the repository from the GitHub page. Now you can see the same. So now let's move on to editing our files in this repository and then pushing back to GitHub, right? So now let's say we want to edit our readme.md file. No, let's use the nano editor. Nano. Now this is the current content of the readme file. Let's add some new things there. Let's say edited using nano editor. Now when I save my file, I want to make these changes available to everyone on GitHub page also. So I want to push these changes to GitHub. Now the first thing you do is the git add command. You could use the git add dot to add every single file or every single folder that you have inside of this repository. But now, since I only have one file, I can decide to only add a single file inside of the repository. Now, so I can provide the readme.md. This will work fine. But then, if I want to add all of the files, let's say I have multiple files, I can use the git add dot command. Now you have to commit, so you use the git commit, and then you provide a commit message. The purpose of the commit message is to like detail the changes that you have made to the code before pushing it back to GitHub. So now let's say edited readme.md file. Now there's also a git status command, git status. This shows you the changes you've made, the difference between your local repository and the one you have on GitHub. Now you can see on branch main, your branch is ahead of the origin main by one commit, which means we have one commit that we've not pushed to our GitHub page. Now to push your changes to GitHub, use the git push command. So now you can see enumerating. Now it's worked. So if I go to my GitHub page now and I reload this page, you would see we should find the changes that we made edited using an editor. So this works fine. Now let's begin to write some code and learn some commands first actually. Now the first command we deal with today is the curl command. Now this command is used to, like, let's say we have a page now. You can create an API with the curl command. You can check the response of the web page, like various purposes. Now let's go to an API that was created by me actually, my dictionary department. So this API returns and contains over 100,000 dictionary words, their meaning and their word class. So now the default page returns a random word, and now you could search a word. Search. Let me say I want to search all the words that begin with COU. Now you can see we have a list of words that begin with the COU, or we could just get a word. Now the get, I have to provide the exact spelling of the word. Let's say get ape. Now you can see we have two definitions of the word ape. You can see it was provided here for us. Now let's imagine we don't want to go to our browser to do this. If you are working on a Linux server, for example, you would not have access to a server, you would have to use the call command. Now let's see how we can get this response from our terminal using the curl command. Let me go back to my terminal and use the curl command. Now curl, I'll provide the URL for the API, and then I type the enter button. So now you can see it gives us the same response that we get in the browser. The word ape, length, and the definition for both definitions of the word. Now you can try the search also. Search COR. So now this should provide us with a list of words that begin with COR. Now you can see we have a bunch of words that is not even it's not how do I call it? It's not formatted because we're using the terminal. Now we could save this response into a file. That's the file redirection. When I use this, it means I want when you use angle brackets after a command, what it means is you want to provide the output of this command into a file. right? So now when I say response.json, so now this would successfully create a new file called response.json and store the values that we have from the response of this curl command. Now when I enter this, you can see it's showing total received, blah blah blah. Now when I list my files again, you can see we have response.json. Now when I open my response.json in the command line terminal editor, response, you can see we have exactly the same response. But now it looks quite formatted because we're using the editor to view it, and it was saved into a JSON file. So now we have the response from that inside of the file. So this is one of the things you could do with curl command. Now if you are using the curl command, let's say you want to check the response for google.com, now you can see 301 moved, right? This is because Google is working on a slightly different URL to this. If I go to google.com page now, you can see we have Google. You can see we have https www.google.com. If I use this exact one, it will work fine. You can see we have the response from Google page. But now, let's say we don't know like the exact URL, but we know something like this now. For example, if I'm not mistaken, you should use the -l to continue to the redirection. So now you can see it work. So now, when you visit the google.com page, as you can see in the browser here, let me do it again, google.com, it will redirect you to the https www.google.com. So now, when we use the curl command without -l, it's showing redirected. So that works fine. But now for us to continue with the redirection, you have to use the -l command. So it will continue to the redirected page, not just stop and tell us redirected. Now when you run this command, it will continue to the redirect page and now display the content of google.com for us. Now let's move on to a new command, the wget command. Now the wget command is used to download files from using your terminal, right? Now wget, let me find the file for us to download in the browser first. Now I'll be showing you another one of my developments, a social media platform I developed using Python, Django, jQuery and some other languages. Now this is a social media platform and instant messaging. It contains several features. You can check it out whenever you can. And now we have in the static files of this page, we have this image, right? I want to say this image is in the static file now. I know this because I developed it myself. So static and icon.png. So this should show us this exact image. Now let's say we want to download this image from the URL to our local device, and I don't want to click like right click download. Let's say I need it in my, let's say an Ubuntu server for example. I cannot access the browser, but I need the file. So you could just download it using the wget command. So I'll copy this URL. Now go to wget and paste it here. Now when I run this command, it should successfully download that file for us and save it inside of my terminal. When I run this now, for example, you can see resolving now 100%. So this is how details about the download. You can see length, it is 7 kilobytes. This is the type of the file that is downloaded, image PNG, saving to icon.png. So you can see now that it has saved the file for us in icon.png file in this folder. Now you can see this is the network speed and this is the time it took to download. This is how the details about the download. Now list my files. You find icon.png also exists here. Now if I should check my file system, my computer, and try to access that file, you see it matches this same picture that was downloaded. Let me open my files, projects, ALX learning. You can see the images here. So that works. Let me close this now and let's move on to a new command. Now there is the tree command. The tree command is used to show the entire structure of your folder. It shows the folders you have, the files that are contained in that folder. So folders and like directories and subdirectories. It goes through all of the folders you have recursively and then displays everything in a quite detailed and interesting format. Now let's say we have the ls command. You would find all of the files like this. When I want to use the tree command, you can see it's showing in somewhat of a tabular form. We have the icon.png and all of our files, so you can see 0 directories, 3 files. Now let me create a new folder so you can see where this becomes interesting. mkdir, remember this command for making a folder, a directory. mkdir new. Now when I list my files now, we have a new folder. Now let me create a file inside of that new folder. So remember, you can create an empty file using the touch command. New. I want to create a file inside of this new folder. Now I put slash and then the name of the file I want. Now let's say new file. Now we would have a new file inside of the new directory. Now I list my files here. Now I list my files. Remember, you can find the contents of a folder using the ls command. So ls and new should display the content of the new folder for us. So we have the new file there. Now when I run the tree command again, you can see it shows us the new directory and then the file that is contained inside of that directory. So this can be useful when you have a lot of folders, a lot of files, and you just want to see how everything is contained. You would see how that works more detailed in a little seconds now. Let me go back. Now I have a bunch of folders here and a number of files inside of those folders. Now when I run the tree command here, you can see it goes a long way because it goes into all the files, all the folders and everything. And it's even taking very long because I have a lot of files and it just continues to go until it reaches the end. Now you can see I have a bunch of files, folders, and it continues and continues until it reaches the end because it's recursive. Now recursive means it will continue to follow the link until it gets to the end of the folder. So now I have a folder, I have another folder inside. It's going to the folder. Check if there's another folder, then continue to that also until it finds that there's no more folder, then it displays all of the details one after the other in this tabular format. Now let me go back into our repository and list my files here. We've learned about the curl command, wget command, the tree command. Now let's learn one more command that is used quite often, the clear command. Now the clear command is used to clear your terminal, right? When I have typed a lot of things and I want to remove everything from the screen, I can use clear. But another shortcut for that also is the Ctrl L command. Ctrl L on your keyboard, Ctrl and the L button should clear whatever is on your screen. But now if you're using a Windows device, for those Windows users, you can use the cls command. It's not working on Linux here. So cls command should clear your screen, your terminal for your Windows operating system. Now we have the cmp command also. The cmp is used to compare files. Now let's say we have two files, they are identical. We want to check if they are exactly the same thing, or want to find the differences between the two files. We could use the cmp command. Now let's say I want to create a new file now. Touch file 1 touch, or just let me edit this file 1 nano file 1 hello file 1. Now I'll save my file. And now remember, if you want to copy this file into a new file, now remember we use the cp command to copy files. I can use the cp file 1, which means the file I want to copy from, my source file, and then the file I want to copy to, the new file, file 2. When I run this command now, we would have the file 2 that contains exactly the same thing as file 1. When I list my files now, we have file 1 and file 2, and you see they contain exactly the same thing. File 1, file 2, the same thing. Now if you run the cmp command, you provide file 1 and file 2. It does not print anything, right? Because the files are exactly the same thing. Now if I should edit one of those files and change something, see what happens. Let me edit my file 2. File 2. Hello file 2. And I save my file now. And now when I run the cmp command again, you can see file 1, file 2 differ by 12 bytes on line 1. Now you can see it shows the differences between the files. So let's say I can add a new file to file 1 now. Nano file 2. Let me change some things here also. Add some more text. Now when I run the cmp command again, you can see line 1. But now let's say line 1 matches exactly the same thing. We now want to see what line 2 looks like. Let me go on to make line 1 of the file the same thing. So now for line, let me exit and save. Now I should wget file 1. Remember the wget command is to display the contents of the file, and wget file 2. Now you can see the first line of each file contains identical values. Now when I run the cmp command again, you can see cmp end of file after file 1. So now you can see we have a new line. This EOF means end of line, I guess. I'm not very sure, but it shows that you've entered a new line. So now you can see that we have a new line on file 2 but not on file 1. So that's the difference. And let's move on to a new actually let's move on to shell scripting for now. To learn a little bit more about shell scripting, we'll deal with some variables, some command line arguments, and all of that. Now when you run a shell script, let's say we have a shell script named shell, my shell, and I want to run this command. I want to pass some arguments. Whatever I type after this, let's say name Jones. Now all of this after the shell scripts are called command line arguments, because you are passing them after you are passing the name of the script you want to run. Now we'll learn how to handle this later. So now let's learn how to handle variables inside of a shell script. Let me create a new shell script using an editor. Let's say we want to create a shell script to add two values. Add. Now now in the previous video I used this beginning for a shell script, usr bin and bash. This works fine, but I guess it's better to use normal usr bin bash. So this works. This is better, like better standard, but they both work fine. So now let's create a new variable. A variable is a container, so to say, to store values. Like let's say you want to keep water, for example. Your water bottle is for keeping water, so we have the variable for keeping values. So now there are several variables, type of variables. We'll deal with that later, but for now let's have number 1 equals, let's say, 9, number 2 equals 7. So now wherever I provide the value number 1, it should automatically display 9. Number 2 should display 7, because they are variables containing those values. Now this here is the variable number 1 actually, and this here is the value. Now let's first use the echo command to print out the values of this. Echo. Now remember, to print out a value of a variable, you have to use the $ command and then the name of the variable. So number 1 echo number 2. And don't forget the $sign here. Now when I exit and save this file, remember, before you run a shell script you have to grant the permission to do so. So chmod u+x and the name of the script, which is add. Now when I run the add script, you can see it's printed out the values for us, 9 and 7. Now let me go back and edit. So now you can see here we didn't really print 1 and 7, we printed the values of the number 1 and the number 2 because they contain the same thing. Now let's see how we can print out string, a sentence, so to say, while simultaneously printing out the values of a variable. So now you could surround this with single quotes, because you have to do that for every string you're trying to print. So now let's say number 1, and let's see the output of it. Now when I run the same script again, you can see it's printed out number 1 for us, and then the value of the number. Let me go back and explain that a little. Now I printed out this number 1. This is just a simple sentence, a string, a word, like without any meaning to it. Now inside of this place is where we insert the value of this variable, because I provided a $sign. Now let's go ahead and change some things here. Let me say number 1 plus number 2 equals. if this works fine, we should be having this output. We should be having should be having 9 plus 7 equals as the output of this shell script. Now let's see if that works as we intended. Control X, Y, and save. Now when I run this script again, we have 7 plus 9 equals. But now we don't know the response of this because you have to initially tell the computer to add these numbers and save the output. Now let me go back into the editor and see how we can do that. So now let's create a new variable to store the sum of these two values. Now let's say sum, as a new variable in this case, equals, remember to use the values of a variable, you have to use the dollar command always. So dollar number 1 plus dollar number 2. Now let's echo dollar sum. So now if this works fine, we should be having the output of the addition of these two numbers right here before printing out these values. Now let's go ahead and let it exit and run the script again to see what happens. So now you can see 9 plus 7, but this is not what we intended, right? We said 9 plus 7 truly, but now we are getting 9 plus 7, not the addition of 9 plus 7. So now to make that work, you have to use this parenthesis. Now this parenthesis means you want whatever is inside of it to be automatically evaluated. Like now let's say you have a math question that says evaluate 7 plus 9, right? So that's what this bracket, this parenthesis tells your computer to do, to evaluate the content of the bracket. Now when I exit my editor now and run the script again, 9 plus 7 still. Okay. Hold on please. So I got a little confused there. I have to check the internet to remember how to work with that. It's been a while I worked with shell. So now after realizing I have to provide double parentheses inside of this to make it work. Now when I run this command again, you can see we have 16, which is the addition of 9 plus 7. Now we want to change where that happens, so I clear my terminal there using the Control L command. And now let me edit this. So we don't want to print out sum right here, we don't need it there. We want to print it out after this. Dollar. Now the sum. So this would like print out the value of the sum command right after that. Now let me save my file and run it again. So now you can see 9 plus 7 equals 16. So now let's see how we can now take user inputs. First, let me change this. So now let's change our script a little to like request for numbers. So now if you see here now, we have to edit this file like to provide the numbers we want to add, which will be quite stupid, so to say. Now let's say we want to change how we get the numbers 1 and numbers 2. So now to get user input in shell script, use the read command. Now let's say read, and then the name of the variable that you want to store the value inside of it. So let's say number 1, and then read number 2. Now when I exit and save now, when I run the script, you can see it's not showing anything like, but it's blinking this cursor, which means it wants you to type something inside of it. When I type in 9, let's say 8 instead, and now it's still blinking again, which means it wants another input, right? Let me say 5 this time, and now you can see 8 plus 5 equals 13. Let's do this again and see what happens. Let's say 19 and 6. You can see it's working fine, right? But now when I run the script, it's not initially telling me to do anything. Only a programmer or someone that is very smart would actually realize that, okay, it wants me to type something inside of this. So now instead of just waiting for the user to like realize that, you might want to provide some details before like asking him to provide the input. Now let's edit this. Now remember the echo command is used to print out variables, right? Now let's say echo, print out strings, for example, words or strings or whatever. Now echo enter value 1, and now right after that, let's say echo enter value 2. Now when I save my file now and run this same command, you can see enter value 1. It's asking us to like provide a value, as like you can read, you can see that's what it wants. Now you can provide 8 and then enter value 2 also 4. Now you can see it works fine. So this is one of the ways to like write shell scripts to automate tasks, so to say. Now let's write another shell script to, or let's say we don't want to use this command this way. We don't want to ask for the user input. We want to like get it from the exact like whenever I run this command, I want to provide my both numbers instead of this same. So I say 8 and 8 here also. So now if you remember at the beginning of the video, I said there are command line arguments, right? So that's what this is called. Now if I want to run this script and provide my values in this format, I want to provide command line arguments, right? So now let me create a new file for us to do that. I don't want to mess this up. Now I can just copy. Remember we have the copy command. Add, that's the file you want to copy from, to the destination file. Let's say advanced add. So now we have the file advanced add that contains exactly the same thing as they had, but now we want to edit it to make it different. Now you can see we have exactly the same thing, but now instead of asking the user to provide values using the echo command, let's just read the contents from the command line argument. Now before we just go on to edit this, let's see how that works. For example, now when you create a shell script, there are some values automatically and dynamically created for you. Now if I should provide some command line arguments, it will be saved in a value like this. So $1 would contain the first argument, $2 contain the second argument, and continue like that. Now let's see how that works. Now let's say echo $1 echo $2. Exit and save. Now let me clear my screen, and now let me run /add advanced add. Now you can see it didn't print anything here, right? Because we didn't provide any arguments. Now let's see how it does when we provide arguments. Let's say Jacob. Now you can see it's printed out those two values right before beginning the code, because we said it to print out the arguments. Now they only provided one value, right? Instead of those two values, you can see for the second value it's printed nothing because it's not existing, nothing is there. So now since we now know how to get values from the arguments, let's see how we can use them inside of the code. Now you remember we have two values, right? The first argument and the second argument. And let's see how that works. So now we can just delete all of this, we don't need it anymore. So now instead of using numbers 1 and numbers 2, now we have the variables created automatically, so you can just use $1 and $2. Now let me exit, save, and see. So now when I run this script, I want to provide the two numbers I want to add right from here, 9 and 6. But now something is wrong. It's not providing the values for us. So now let's see why is that. So now let's say first let's initialize variables to see how this happens. Let's say number 1 equals $1 and number 2 equals $2. So now let's change this to number 1 and number 2 and see what happens. Now let's see again. Now you can see it works fine. 9 and 6 equals 15. So the reason it didn't print those numbers is because the arguments, right, they should be stored in variable first before trying to access them inside of the echo command. So now let's see it works fine as we intended. 96, let's say 10 and 82, it works fine. So now we already have a little command line application of our own to work with numbers and 82. So it works fine. We've done this. So now if you remember at the beginning when we cloned our repository, right, we said we used the let me go back to the command and see if I can still find it. We used the git clone command, and then we used our what are they calling it? Our personal access token inside of this command. So now imagine you have to do this every time you're trying to clone a repository, right? It will be quite slow and not really reasonable since we can automate things with shell scripts. So now let's create a shell script to automate this task for us. Now I would copy this command. Let me clear my screen now. And now let's create a new shell script called clone. Now let's say nano clone, and let's paste this inside of it. So now instead of just like hard coding this, you know, we want to clone different repositories using this same script. So we want to be able to provide the name of the repository we want and then the username for that repository. So we want to change this to $1 using the arguments, right, and $2. So now when you run this script, you want to provide the name of the username for the repository that you want to clone. If you want to clone my repository, for example, you have to use clone my username and then the name of the repository, because we have the first value here and then the second value. So the first value always has to be the name of the repository, the name of the username of the GitHub account, then the $2, which is the second argument, has to be the name of the repository. Now let's exit and see how this file works. Now ls. So now you can see we don't, this file shows, but it's not green yet. Can you guess why that is? Because we've not made it executable. Now let's say chmod u plus x clone. Now when I use my files again, you can see it's now green because it's executable now. Now when I use /clone, I should provide my username first, username of whichever repository you want to clone, and then the name of the repository. So let me check one of my repositories to clone again. Repositories, so you can see how that works. Let's say learn node, for example. So now lern node. So you can see to clone the repository successfully. When I use my files now, we have the repository cloned. So now this works for any repository you want, as long as it's a public repository. But if it's a private one, you need to be permitted by the user, by the owner of the repository, to edit the repository. So only then will it work for you. Now let me try to clone someone else's repository, for example. Now let me go to someone's account. Nobody. And then let's clone this repository, Python basics. Now let's see. Clone. The username of the user that owns the repository. And then the name of the repository. See, it also works here. It works for basically any repository that is public, and then you'll be able to push also. So now let me delete this because we don't need them. -rf learn node. Now we are left with all of this. So I'll move all of this into a folder so you can see. And separate, you can distinguish the ones that we did today from the other ones. Now let me move ad star clone file star icon star png. into a new folder called day1. So I've not created a folder, so you can see mv target day1 is not a repository. So now let me create the repository, mkdir day1. So now when I list my files, you can see all of those files are in the day1 folder now, day1. So now, in case, let's say for example, let me go into the day1 folder, ls. Now, if you want to clone a repository now, you know you have to use the /clone script. Well, now this script would always you are required to always like have this script inside of the same folder that you're working inside. Now, if I should go to cd++ now, and I try to use the same script, clone, and my username and the repository name, it will not work because the file is not here. But now there's a way you could work around this. cd day1. So now you have to use the sudo command. You have to move this clone file into the bin directory. So now mv sudo command, actually sudo mv clone bin. So now this will make it available globally for your computer. And when I run this command, I'll provide your sudo username, and then you can see ls, it's no longer there, right? But now when I run the clone command from anywhere, now I don't need /clone anymore because it's a global file. When I run clone and my repository name, you can see it's working fine, even though it's not there. So let me remove this repository. Now let me move the clone file back just in case you need it to reference in the repository. So you can just copy it back. cp bin clone. So now we have the clone file also back here, but now it's copied, so it's still in the previous location. So now let me go back, cd.dot. Now we don't need this new folder anymore, so rm-rf new. And now let me check the status of my repository. Status. So now you can see we have a folder that has not been committed or added or staged to the repository. So now let me use the git commit -n. And let's just say this is all of the code for day1. And then git push. So now if you check the repository, you can find this exact changes has been made. elxlen. So now you can find the folder day1 is also there. So that's all for now. Thank you guys for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Leave your questions in the comment section, and I will share my repository link inside of the description of this video. Thank you and goodbye.